Hello, hello, hello! It's been a while since we've done a video like this. So, with the recent... Actually, no, let's start with a little bit of an intro. So, thank you everybody for stopping by. Today we're going to be rating the characters in Honkai Star Rail based on how likely they are to get a 5-star variant. Mainly because of the fact that it's recently been drip-fed that we're getting Evernight and... what was it? Progenitor Terrae, or whatever they're calling the new Dan Heng variant. So I figured, let's do a little bit of a tier list, and we could try to judge for ourselves who's going to be the most likely to be able to get a 5-star variant. There's quite a few characters that I think are probably more likely than you would think, and we're even going to discuss a little bit of what those variants could be like. And we'll probably be here for maybe about an hour, possibly longer. But before we get any further into it, just a reminder that if you'd like to stay up to date on what I'm going to be doing and when I'm going to be doing it, the best way to do that would be to join the Discord, links to which are in the description below, or if you're watching this live on Twitch, it's going to be on the About page on Twitch. And as I've done for most of my videos that have come out in the last couple weeks, my leg injury is doing a lot better. I'm taking medicine for it less and less because I think I'm starting to get closer and closer to fully healed. I think maybe one more week and I'll be good as new. But here's hoping. Right now it only really hurts if I raise it above a certain amount, and if I try to like squat really low or bend it too quickly, it'll actually start to hurt. But beyond that, it's more or less fine. Alright, and without further ado, let's just get into this. So as I've already mentioned, we've gotten a few different characters that have had 5-star variants. For instance, Dan Heng being the very first one that we've gotten a 5-star variant of, which was Imbibitor Lunae, or Dill, as the community has so lovingly called him. So it is completely unsurprising that we have yet another Dan Heng variant, and I would not put it beyond him getting another one. And same thing goes with March 7th. She 100% is getting a new variant, so let's get her out of the way just in the first place. So Dan Heng, the fact that he is getting a variant, and Evernight, those are upcoming. And when they pop up again here, we will talk about them more in detail about other variants I think that they might get. So who's first on our list? It looks like these are in alphabetical order. This should be every character that's in the game up to 3.5, but I'm not entirely sure. Alright, so first up is Acheron. Is Acheron actually the first character alphabetically in Honkai Star Rail? She might be. AC. Yeah, that's probably correct. So, do I think Acheron will get a new variant? I'm gonna lump her into unlikely. I wouldn't completely rule it out, because she does have, like, that horned demon form that she had from her Myriad Celestia trailer. And maybe we'll see that in a trailer someday. Maybe she'll kill Ix and become the Aeon of Nihility, and they'll make an Aeon variant of her. Maybe. I don't think it's very likely to happen, but I'll put her down here in unlikely. So, unlikely is basically less than 20%. She's a really popular character, and maybe we'll even get another Mei XV from HI3, or a Mei variant, so that's also a possibility. So, that's the only reason I'm putting her in unlikely rather than will not. So, Aglaia. Will we get a new version of Aglaia? I am going to put it in will not. I don't think we're going to get any new versions of most of the characters from Amphorius. I don't think they're very likely. Aglaia's like really, really new, and I don't think that we're going to get one. She's kind of already a variant of an existing character as is. I think we'd be more likely to get that character, another variant of that character, rather than another variant of Aglaia. So, moving right along, we have Anaxa. Now, Anaxa, again, similar to Aglaia, is a variant of a character from HI3, which I believe is, what was his name, Su? So, I'm actually going to put him in likely, because I think that we might get another Su variant. I think it's really likely that we'll get another Su variant. In particular, I think that we might even get a Sa variant. Like, maybe his sister will become playable at some point. Will they be playable as a 5-star? Probably unlikely. But Vita is a Sa variant, and Vita might show up in Honkai Star Rail, especially after the events of the collab on HI3, so I would not rule that out. If we get a variant of an Axa, that variant we're getting is probably going to be Vita. So 5-star Vita, I'm not confirming it now, but it is very likely to happen. I'd probably put it in the ballpark of 60 to 80%. That we're probably going to get another Su variant or Vita. One or the other. Alright, Archer. I'm going to straight up put that in will not. I know variants of him exist. I don't know how many Fate collabs we're going to get over the next 10 years. And even if we get 9 more Fate collabs over the next 10 years, I don't think that we're going to get multiple different Emias. Especially since the structure of the Fate collabs so far has been summons are the characters that we're getting. I wouldn't put it there. That being said, Pipe Dream. I would love to get Kiritsugu Emiya, Assassin Emiya from Fate Go. It's not gonna happen, but I would like to have it nonetheless. Argenti. 5-star, another 5-star variant of Argenti. I'll put this in will not. I love Argenti. I think we will get more Knights of Beauty before we get Argenti variants. And if we start getting like all the Knights of Beauty as playable characters, maybe then I would change my opinion on this. But for the time being, I don't think we're going to get a 5-star variant of Argenti anytime soon. We're probably going to get more Knights of Beauty instead. Alright, is that Arlen? Do I think we will get a 5-star version of Arlen? I will put this in unlikely. This is a character that I feel like Hoyo sadly has forgotten about. He didn't get picked in the first round of character buffs, and he is probably the character in most need of buffs. Please buff him, Hoyo, and please do it before you make a 5-star version of him. Asta, I'm also going to put over here in unlikely. Asta, I don't think we're going to get a 5-star version of her. She doesn't have a lot of interesting lore, and the most interesting lore surrounding her character is more revolving around her parents. One or both of her parents might show up as a 5-star unit in the future, but Asta, I don't think will be showing up as a 5-star unit in the future. Unless she shows up as like a remembrance character. Summon Dreadnought from my wallet! So unless something like that happens, I don't really see Asta becoming a new 5-star unit anytime soon. Alright, the last one in the A's, it's Aventurine. Aventurine is one of the 10 Stone Hearts, and does have a boss version of himself. I'm gonna put him in 50-50. We might get a 10 stratagems version of him as a really, power creeped version of his own kit. I would not be surprised if they make like a destruction version of him where it's just his boss fight. I could totally see that happening. But at the same time, I think it's about as likely to happen as they are to just make a power creeped version of Aventurine in the next 3 years. They don't like to make preservation units, but at the same time, a variant of Aventurine doesn't have to be a new preservation unit. Personally, we'll talk about this a little bit more with the rest of the Stonehearts as they come up, but I think that we might get... But I think most of them are probably going to end up here. Some more than others. Alrighty, we have Bailu. Do I think we'll ever get a 5-star variant of Bailu? I'm actually going to put this one in a likely. So Bailu, if you've been following her story and lore, she's kind of, sort of, a byproduct of an attempt to bring back Bai Hung. So she's kind of got part Danfeng, part Bai Hung, and she's kind of got a little bit of both of those going on in her character. If we ever get Danfeng, or if we ever get a Bai Hung playable character as a 5-star variant, I'm counting that as a Bailu variant. So that's why I'm putting it here, and I think it is very likely that we get that at some point. Or, who knows, maybe they just want to give her a growth spurt and we get a slightly taller Bailu. Yes, this is Black Swan, I believe. So, Black Swan. Do I think we'll get a 5-star variant of Black Swan? I'm gonna put this one in 50-50. I think we can get an Emanator of Remembrance Black Swan. I think that could totally happen. She is a memo keeper. It's kind of debated whether or not the memo keepers qualify as emanators of the Remembrance. But at the same time, she's also got some ties to the Nihility, which is really odd. But I think, as a memo keeper, I think we could definitely get a 5-star Remembrance version of Black Swan somewhere down the line. And maybe she'll be a Remembrance Dot character. Because we don't have one of those yet, right? We don't have a Remembrance Dot character. Dot needs more support. We're getting Hystilins in this upcoming patch. Why can't we get a Dot Black Swan, but Remembrance? Then I could put 2 Black Swans on the same team. Unless they want to do the thing that they do with, like, Hunt March, where you just switch Black Swan between the 2 paths. That could easily happen. I'm not entirely sure, but So yeah, I'm gonna put... You know, in fact, we're gonna bump that up. We'll put her into likely. I think we will get a Remembrance 5-star variant of Black Swan at some point. Alright. Blade. So, this is a fun one. I'm actually going to put Blade in likely. In fact, not only am I putting Blade in likely, we're bumping Black Swan into 100% will. So, Blade, he's cursed by abundance, and I feel like it would be very interested to... I would be very interested to see an abundance variant of Blade. He's basically cursed with abundance and he constantly heals, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could pass that on to somebody else. I would love to see a version of his kit where instead of a destruction unit, he's an abundance unit. And I think that might be something we see. Alternatively, I could also see us going the other route with Blade, and we just turn him into like a preservation unit where he's like a tank or something. Because I think that they want to make a team of Stellaron Hunters at some point. I think that they'll try to make it so that every faction has a viable team of just using that faction at some point. That might be something I think that might do down the line. And I would love to see each of the Stellaron Hunters get a variant at some point that lets them fill a different role so that they could all play together on a team. Having Blade as a support or Blade as a healer, I feel like could help him be that role. But maybe we'll see this more likely when LEO becomes playable. But for the time being, I'm going to put Blade in likely because I think we can get an abundance variation of him at some point down the line. Alright, next up we have Boot Hill. Boot Hill. Where do I want to put Boot Hill? I'm going to put him in 50-50. I think we're going to get a version of him that is maybe upgraded with new robot parts at some point down the line. And maybe one that can actually swear. That could be fun, right? Boot Hill, but uncensored, unfiltered. Alright, looks like we're at the end of the Bs. And it's your girl, it's Bronya, Supreme Guardian Bronya. I'm gonna put her in likely. I'm just thinking that Bronya, she's a standard 5-star at the time being, and I think it's very likely that we get a limited version of her. She's probably one of the most... you could probably even argue Silverwolf already is, but I think it's very likely that we're going to see maybe multiple Bronya variants through thing. In fact, I'm actually going to move Bronya up to 100% will. There will 100% be a Bronya variant at some point that's a 5-star limited unit. Whether or not she'll be Destruction... I think Erudition Bronya might be something that we could see down the line. I would love to see a Preservation Bronya. She's the Supreme Guardian. She's supposed to be a representative of the Architects. She's supposed to be the Defender of Belobog. I would love to see a full Preservation Bronya at some point. and that's something we can totally see down the line. That's my personal prediction for the 5-star variant of Bronya that we're getting. But it's Bronya. There's how many variants of Bronya throughout the Hoyoverse at this point? You could make a Bronya in every single one of the paths. We could add 3 paths and add 3 more Bronyas. I think we're going to see a lot of Bronyas. It's pretty much, not only will we get a Bronya variant, I think we're going to get several Bronya variants. I think it's just more surprising that we haven't got one yet, unless you count Silverwolf. Alrighty, we're out of the B's. It's time for the C's. What is this, Castris? Yes, that's Castris. Alright, Castris. Will we see a Castris variant? Now, I did say earlier with Aglaia that I actually don't think we're going to see variants of most of the Chrysos heirs. Castris, however, is one of the ones I'm 50-50 on. Because I think we could get a Polixia playable character. Because right now we have Polixia as Pollux the Dragon. I think that we could theoretically get... I'm going to count it. I'm going to count them even though they're 2 separate people. I'm going to count that we might get Polixia as a playable unit somewhere down the line. It would also be really just neat for diversity reasons, because I think it'd be really interesting to see some wheelchair representation. I mean, we could have had the... we'll talk about this later with Misha, probably, but we could have had a Misha variant where it's the Watchmaker, where he's in his wheelchair at the end of his life, or maybe just a Watchmaker in his prime. That's something that we'll talk about later. Alright, Ceridra. I'm gonna put it in unlikely. She's new. She's, very interesting. I don't know enough about her. I don't feel comfortable putting her fully in will not. So, for right now, unlikely is as comfortable as I feel putting her anywhere. Alright, moving on forward, we have Catgirl. Cypher time. Where do I want to put Cypher? You know what? I'm just going to shove her in will not. I don't think we're going to get a Cypher variant. I just don't. She's a very big and important character, but I feel like her character arc is pretty much already complete, and I don't really see the character going anywhere from this point on. So, where she is currently, both in the meta and in the lore, she's kind of stagnant right now, so I don't think we're going to see any more variants of Cypher anytime soon. Clara and Svarog. Ooh, do I think there could be a 5-star limited variant of Clara? Like I said with Bronya, as a standard unit, I think she's 100% likely. In fact, I think instead of Svarog with Klarog, I think we're probably going to get a Svarog with Clara as a playable unit at some point. Maybe make him Erudition, maybe make him Preservation, but I think we could see a variant of Svarog by himself. I've actually been saying for a long time on my channel that I would love to have a playable Svarog. And since he's very much integrated into Clara's kit, Svarog is effectively Clara, so if we ever got a 5-star playable Svarog, I would count that as a variant of Clara. So we 100% he will 100% be playable at some point. If they don't, then Hoyo just hates money. And we're out of the C's, which means it's time for the D's. Alright, Dan Heng. 100% will. He's getting one in like 3.6. How many more will Dan Heng get? I don't know. At least one more, I think. I think we'll get an Emanator of Permanence version of Dan Heng at some point or something or other. Or maybe we'll get Don Feng as a playable character where he gets all of his memories back, and then we get Don Feng. Those are the two that I think we're going to get. As for what paths those will be, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a Remembrance Dan Heng, where he has the dragon summons that he can throw around. A Memo Sprite dragon. And we'll just shove Dill over there, too. Alrighty. Dr. Ratio. I'm going to put Dr. Ratio in unlikely. See, Dr. Ratio is a very interesting character as a member of the Intelligentsia Guild. He can theoretically get the Gaze of News, so we can get a Genius Society version of him down the road. There are options for him, but at the same time, the likelihood of those options, I don't see them capitalizing on. Also, he's the worst performing character banner-wise, but partially that's because he was also given away for free. So it's really hard to tell. I don't think that they're going to do anything with him in the future, but the fact that they could is the thing that I will use to justify not putting him in the will not category. Alright. Who's next? Fei Xiao. Do I think we'll get a Fei Xiao variant? I'll put her in 50-50. Now, there's some room for Fei Xiao to change in the story. For instance, she could fully embrace the Borison half of her, and we could get a more Borison-themed Fei Xiao somewhere down the line. Maybe get her as an abundance unit. Something like Xuyei, or a destruction unit where she's like a tank. Because she does have a lot of ties to Xuyei, and we could probably incorporate some of Hulei's kit into her. Maybe even make her a counter unit in Destruction. That could be something that she could do. But so, out of all of the Arbiter Generals, she was the one that I would probably put as the most likely to get another variant. Firefly. As I mentioned with Blade, we'll put Firefly over here with Blade. I think that we could see an alternate version of Firefly somewhere down the road. Particularly because I think that every one of the Firefly mechs, there might be other Firefly mechs out there, and I think any one of them could be playable, and I think that I would count that. It's also very possible down the line that Firefly might cure her sickness, and when we're like in a post-story type 8 years in the future version of HSR, or when we're in HSR2, maybe we'll get Firefly, if she hasn't died yet, as a, I don't know, maybe a preservation unit, where she's trying to preserve what life she has left or something. There's options for her. More options for her than Blade, to be honest. But I'm not going to try to shuffle them around in the order. We're just going to try to lump them all into the tiers that they're in right now. Speaking of preservation, it's Fu Xuan. Where do I think Fu Xuan should be? I think the likelihood of us getting a Fu Xuan variant is actually very likely. She has so many ties to the erudition with the omniscia and the seeing the future. I think that if we get like a path in the future for Terminus and the finality Fu Xuan, we can get a finality Fu Xuan. Or, like I said already, she has so many ties to the erudition and Noose that I would actually just like to have her as an erudition. She's also already kind of tiptoeing on multiple paths, where she kind of has, like, harmony, preservation, and, like, erudition built into her kit, kind of, already. So, I don't know. Let's just make a Fu Xuan where she's a dedicated support. Or make a Fu Xuan where she's, like, a dedicated preservation unit. Or make a Fu Xuan where she's, like, a DPS. I think that she's one of the characters that we could definitely do a 5-star version, and now that she's been added to the 50-50 Lost Pool, I think the odds of us getting a new limited version of her are also slightly more likely than they have been in the past. Alright, the last one of the Fs, it's Fugue. I am probably going to put this one in... Where do I want to put Fugue? I'm gonna put Fugue in unlikely. Ting Yun slash Fugue has already gone through her entire arc, and we've gone and made her a 5-star variant. I feel like she's kind of found who she wants to be at this point. Her character arc is more or less complete. I don't think we need to rehash this again and make a new version of her. I won't completely write it off. In fact, no, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we will completely write it off. I'm going to put her in Will Not. Fugue will not get another 5-star variant. Gallagher is dead. I'll put him in unlikely. Gallagher, if you follow the lore of, like, mythos and the history fictionologists, it's quite possible that Gallagher isn't actually dead, and that he might be the representation of the unknown in the memory zone, and we could definitely see him show up again as a 5-star variant, maybe even, like, as an emanator of the Enigmata. Maybe if Enigmata ever becomes a playable path, we'll get to see Gallagher again show up, and he'll show up as an emanator of that path, or just a pathstrider on that path. But until that happens, I don't see it very likely. But the fact that it could happen is enough for me to put him in unlikely rather than will not. Alrighty. We're still in the G's. It's Jeppy Boy, Japard. As a standard bannered 5-star, I'm going to put you in likely. I'm not going to put you in 100% will like some of your standard bannered peers. There is a version of Japard out there where I feel like he could be a really nasty DPS unit, or where he plays a little bit more closely to his boss. But at the same time, you know what? Actually, we'll drop him down. I'm going to put you down in 50-50. Your kit has kind of been explored already to the point where your boss is actually already pretty similar to your kit, where you're both really preservation coded, and it's really hard to think of you as anything other than a preservation unit. Maybe down the line we can get like a battlefield commander variant of you, where you're more about spawning in a remembrance summon or something in. But outside of that, I don't really see it happening. And I keep honestly talking myself more and more down to the point where we're just going to put you in unlikely. Gwen-Hyphen! Hello, you're going up here. I think Gwen-Hyphen, we 100% will be getting a 5-star variant of Gwen-Hyphen at some point. She's Guinevere. We already know that she has a different name. Just give us Guinevere as a playable character. Put her in her traditional Camelot garb, and maybe even make her like a knight, or like a squire, or like an archer or something. Gwen-Hyphen could totally be a 5-star unit at some point. What they want to do with that, she has so many possibilities, and I would be interested to see any of them come to light. Alright, Hanya. I'm going to put her in unlikely. Hanya is Mara-struck, and the fact that Jing Liu has this whole alternate state of Mara sickness makes me think that we could get a version of Hanya that's somewhat similar to Jing Liu, where she goes super crazy and maybe becomes like a DPS of some kind. But I'm going to put that as very unlikely. The odds of Hanya getting a 5-star variant are not 0, but they are above 0. They're low, but they're not 0. So that's where I'm going to put her in unlikely. Alright, Herta. I will put her in unlikely, and just because we're already down here, where is the Herta? Let's just shove both of you together while we're here. We already have a really crazy variant to you, and it's an emanator no less. But if the weird lore dialogue lines about the Aeons waiting in line to make her an emanator, and Herta could show up as the Path of Beauty Emanator at some point. And in fact, just for that alone, we're going to move our Genti out of the Will Not into Unlikely. If we ever get Beauty as a playable path, we can get a Beauty Herta. We could also get a Remembrance Herta, to be honest. She has ties to the Remembrance, she has ties to the Beauty, she has ties to the Erudition, and I could see Herta being any of the following. Himiko! Yeah, we're just going to shove you in 100% Will. If we do not get a Himiko variant of some kind, that's like a reference to her HI3 character more, or just anything else. She's a navigator, and we don't see her do a lot of navigating. And she's also an engineer, and her erudition kit seems to be tied more towards that, of her being an engineer. But who's to say in the future where Himiko can go? Maybe we'll get a Destruction Himiko. Maybe we'll get a Preservation Himiko. Who's to say? But I think that, personally, out of all the Astral Express characters, I think all of them at some point will have a 5-star limited variant, Himiko included. Okay, Pitch Dark Hook the Great. What do I think about Pitch Dark Hook the Great? I'm honestly 50-50 on it. Similar to Bailu, I think Hook could totally just grow up. Maybe we'll get like a Masked Fool Hook at some point down the line. Get like an Elation Hook. That could be a thing, if Elation becomes a path. Or Hook could become a preservation unit of some kind. And follow in the footsteps of the Moles and try to protect the people of Boulder Town. Do I see it happening? No. I don't think Hook's popular enough. I like Hook. That's why I always call them Pitch Dark Hook the Great. In fact, we could literally just get a 5-star unit of her release that's just Pitch Dark Hook the Great. To be fair, though, I think we're more likely to get a 4-star variant of Hook than we are to get a 5-star variant of Hook. Alright, we're still in the H's, and it's only now that I'm realizing how many units in this game have an H as their first letter of their name. Because I don't think we're even like halfway through this. It's Hua Hua! Alright, Hua Hua. So, Hua Hua is actually low-key one of the characters that I want to talk about because it's one of the characters that inspired me to do this tier list. I think that somewhere down the line, we are going to get a Hua Hua 5-star Remembrance unit where Mr. Tail is her Memo Sprite, and Mr. Tail maybe absorbs Cirrus and becomes Ignimar. And we could get a DPS Hua Hua. I think this is something that will happen somewhere down the line. When will it happen? I don't know. But I just feel like it'd be something fun that they could do. Hua Hua is still a very popular unit because they're kind of a broken abundance unit that's technically doubling as a harmony unit. So they're popular enough and they're going to maintain their popularity that I could totally see this happening down the line, that we could probably get a 5-star Hua Hua variant. Hyacinth! Amphorius unit, but I'm going to dump you in Unlikely. The only reason you're not in Will Not is because I think Ika could be a playable unit. But whether Ika is a 5-star or a 4-star on their own remains to be seen. Still in the H's, it's Hysolins. I don't know enough about you, so we're just shoving you in Unlikely. I won't rule it out that you can get a variant somewhere down the line. Maybe like a non-dot version of you. And beyond that, I don't have any other thoughts. Alright. Are we done with the H's? Alright, it's Jade time. So, I mentioned this earlier with Venturine. I think it's really possible and really likely that we get a boss version of Jade at some point down the line, where she's using her Stoneheart form, if she has one. We know that all the Stonehearts don't have one of these forms. Topaz, I think, has said as much, is that she hasn't. But they still have powers in the stones that they can use that they aren't utilizing in their kit. I would love to see a version of Jade's kit where she utilizes the stone in some manner or not. And frankly, after having said that, I'm actually still not convinced. So we'll just shove you in the same tier as Aventurine. Because I don't think you're actually more likely than Aventurine, since Aventurine already has the boss kit design that's built around. Not to mention that the devs also mentioned with Aventurine specifically that they were experimenting with a different kit with him, involving like dodge as a mechanic, which thankfully they didn't end up doing. But I would say Aventurine is more likely than you, but you're you're still on the 50-50 fence. Alright, next up we have Jiaoqiu. And I'm actually going to put Jiaoqiu in likely. He's a healer by trade, and I feel like we're going to get an abundance version of him at some point. I feel like we would be cheated if we did not. Now, with his eyes being slashed in the lore, we could get a version of him with like bandages over his eyes or something. So there's all sorts of ways we can go with Jiaoqiu's kit. And similar to Fei Xiao, he's just one of those characters where his kit's kind of boring, and it doesn't fully reflect him as a character. He has other aspects of his character that are tied more into other paths. Like, he could be a preservation character that's about keeping people alive, or an abundance character, are the two most likely ones I could see a Jiaoqiu path in the future. Or maybe he's just a full-on chef harmony unit where he cooks food and gives it to people the same way that the Hunt March just shoves boba in their face. But I would say it's more likely than not we get a new Jiaoqiu variant at some point. Alright, Jing Yuan, Arbiter General of the Zhanzhou Lafu. I'm actually going to put you in unlikely. Do I think we can get like a Hunt Path version of you? Yes. Do I think we'll get it? Nah. They keep buffing you too much to actually want to give you another variant. Jing Liu. I'm gonna put you in unlikely. They went through a lot of effort to just rework your kit recently. And I don't think they would do that if they were just going to replace you with a new Jing Liu variant. That being said, I do think that it's possible for a new Jing Liu variant to come out as a 5-star unit, where maybe she's like later on in the lore, maybe she's got her Mara sickness more under control, or less under control, and we go even crazier with her. I can see either of those happening, but the likelihood of either of those happening, I don't think is very likely. Next up, we have Kafka. Oh, we're out of the J's, which means we're in the K's. Is Kafka actually the only unit with a K first letter name? Huh. I didn't think about that. Alright, Kafka. I'm going to throw Kafka in 100% will. So, I know that I just said that Jing Liu just got reworked and so did Kafka, but Kafka is a way more important character in the lore. Personally, I think if and when we get other paths, like maybe we'll get a finality path at some point. I've had a theory for a while that we'll get a finality path at some point, and its path mechanics will be based around manipulating the action order in some way. Like maybe like a trick room type effect where now the slowest units go first and the slowest enemies go first or something like that. Or like they're built around the slow mechanic. That thing that some Nihility units used to be built around, but they kind of just abandoned the mechanic. And I could definitely imagine them making a new 5-star version of Kafka to do that. And I can already imagine them making another trailer with Kafka with some crazy classical EDM. Okay. Well, we're done with the K's. It's time for the L's. Which means it's Lingsha. She's a Vidyaraha. She could die at any point. And then we get a new 5-star Lingsha that gets reborn, so to speak. And, like, she's got ties to, like, Don Shu, I guess. I don't really have much to say about Lingsha. She's one of those characters where I like her, but she's just, like, not gotten enough screen time for me to really develop a long-standing impression. She abandons, she break, she incense. Maybe we get a hunt version of her, or a remembrance version of her, where she's just going all in on the Fuyon bunnies. Who knows? Alright, Luca. I'm actually 50-50 on Luca. I could see them doing it, but at the same time, I feel like Luca is just one of those characters that they just want to remain a featured 4-star character because of how often they bring them up in events. But at the same time, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that we just get a 5-star version of Luca because part of their arc is that just they are getting stronger and stronger. So eventually they'll be stronger than 5-star units. I mean, on paper, if you played the War Dance event, he's technically stronger than Svarog now, even though he lost to Svarog in a 1v1 in his character mission early on in the game. That being said, if we do get a 5-star variant of Luca, please make Oleg playable. I want to have a... If Oleg can't be a 5-star character, at least make him a 4-star character. He trained Luca. He's a fighter. He's the leader of the resistance of Wildfire. He's one of the leaders. If Natasha can have a kit, why can't Oleg? Plus, Oleg has got one of the coolest designs. On that note, also make Kratos a 4-star. Kratos could have been a 4-star in Amphorius. It feels weird that he wasn't. Alright, we're still in the L's. It's Luocha. And Luocha, we're dumping you straight back to the top. It's time to put you in the... Yeah, Luocha has ties to the Abundance, but he's also super shady, and he goes by multiple names. And going by multiple names super increases the likelihood of them just releasing a new character of you with a different name. So... Luocha 100% will. If and when they decide to reveal that he was actually a variant of Auto Apocalypse the whole time, then sure. And also, it's really weird that he's dragging around this coffin that he was supposed to deliver, and he's delivered the coffin, so he technically doesn't have it anymore. So if we show him, if he shows up in the story again, it would be a really good time to justify him having a new kit. Because he doesn't have that coffin anymore. He gave it to the Sancho Alliance. Lynx. How likely do I think Lynx? I'm gonna put Lynx in... I'm gonna put Lynx in unlikely. They're kind of always going off and doing their own thing. They're exploring, they're messing around with the local wildlife in the Eternal Freeze. There's enough there for them to have a different kit, but I feel like it's more likely that we will see a 4-star variant of Lynx than we will see a 5-star variant of Lynx. March 7th, we already know that. We're done with the L's. There's the Hunt March. We have Evernight, so you are already here. Misha! I mentioned this earlier. But you're also dead. So, I'm just gonna shove Misha in unlikely. We could get a Watchmaker. Spoilers for those who haven't played through the Fate collab story in the Jailblaze continuance, but Misha showed up as a summoned spirit. So we could totally get a Summon Spirit 5-star variant of Misha, or like a version of them that's constructed of Memoria, where it's the Watchmaker Misha. But the likelihood of that happening, I would say, is very unlikely. The possibility remains, but it is unlikely. Mozzarella. I'll put you in unlikely. There's some weird Disciples of Sanctus Medicus ties to your character, and I could totally see you turning traitor and going full abundance unit at some point. But just because I can see it happening doesn't make it likely to happen, so I'm going to put you in unlikely. Alright. My day. Honestly, your character arc's done. I don't think we're going to see it. I'm just going to shove you and will not. You're the similar boat as Cypher. Your character arc is pretty much completed, and I can't really imagine any reason for why we would make a new 5-star version of you at this point in time. If I decide to update this list at any point in the future, maybe we could open this discussion up again. But for the time being, I'm going to say no. Natasha! The leader of Wildfire. I'm going to put you as more likely than Luca. Personally, I think you need a rework. But also, there's like a version of you in HI3 where you're like a super cool assassin. And I feel like there's more about your character to be explored. So Natasha, you can go in likely. Pela. I think you're about as likely as Lynx. Maybe you get like a promotion or something and you become a captain like Japard, and we get Captain Pela. Or maybe we get like an off-work version of you where you're like a manager or at the museum or something, and you get to be like a Harmony unit or something, but will those be 5-star versions? I don't really think so. I feel like you're more likely to get a 4-star variant than you are to get a 5-star variant. I could see you getting a variant, but it's hard to see you getting a 5-star variant. Alright, Finon! I'm actually going to put you in 50-50. Since you're kind of a Kevin XP, I could imagine us seeing another version of you at some point down the line. And who knows, maybe you'll be like an Emanator of Destruction, or are an Emanator of Destruction now. It's kind of vague. Not exactly super clear. But I could see it happening, but I could also see it not happening. Or let's just get a version of you where like we get the Flame Reaver as a playable character. Where we get like a remembrance version of your character, where you're just throwing out a memo sprite, which is just the weird Flame Reaver clone of you. Yeah, so I'm putting you in the same bucket as the Stonehearts. NOP. Q! It's my girl! It's Qingque! I'm gonna throw you in 50-50. Because we have the greatest gambler of all time, and then the greatest gambler of today. Personally, I think that you might be getting a rework soon. I think you're one of the characters that needs a rework. Because to this day, I think you're the only Erudition unit that only has one AoE in their kit. And that being your ult. And I feel like the percentage chance of your follow-up needs to be changed. But that's just me nitpicking about a rework that you need. And as for the likelihood of you getting a new variant, I could totally see you getting a version that is probably Preservation, or a version that's Elation, if we get Elation as a new path at some point. Or, honestly, I'm just kind of putting you here because you're one of my favorite characters. And more because I want it to happen more than I think it's likely to happen, to be honest. But who's to say? Fu Xuan keeps you around, so there's definitely some reason why Fu Xuan is keeping you around. You definitely have potential. As for whether or not you will meet that potential, or whether or not Hoyo will give you the love, I don't know. But Hoyo has also been shoving you around in a lot of events recently, and we've learned that you have a lot more talents than I've ever thought to realize. Like, who would have guessed that you were like a drag racer? Or like a street racer of any kind? I wouldn't have guessed that. I really like your character, and I read your lore quite a bit, and I'm surprised that you were like a race driver. And you also have ties to the Artistship Commission with like the Star Skiffs and whatnot. So it's like, you are a surprisingly diverse character, and I could definitely see them exploring that in some way in the future. As for what path that would be and what that 5-star could be, I don't know. But that's where we're putting Qingque. Alright, Rappa. Where do I want to put Rappa? I'm going to put Rappa in 50-50. You have the mimetic virus. I could totally see a version of you where you don't have the mimetic virus somewhere down the line. And we get more of like a hunt version of you, as opposed to the erudition version of you. But you're also like super smart, so it could just be an erudition version of you, but with different kit, and you're maybe just not super break. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Rappa. Not a lot, I know. Now, Robin. I'm actually going to shove Robin in the Will Not. She's super tied to the harmony. She's capable of being fused with the harmonic strings, which was the original plan that the Dreamweaver Gopherwood planned to do in order to summon Enna the Order. If Order becomes a path, or Relation becomes a path, I could see it maybe, but you're kind of like an Emanator at this point, and you're super tied to the path of the harmony, and I kind of don't see you anywhere else other than a harmony. I feel like you are the most shoehorned in character for that. It's making me rethink Acheron. Where did I put Acheron? Acheron's an unlikely. Look at Acheron has other stuff going for them. You don't. Well, that's enough for Robin. Ruan Mei! I'ma shove you in 100% Will. Ruan Mei is actually another one of the characters that I wanted to discuss for this video, and was one of the reasons I wanted to create this video in the first place. Ruan Mei has so many ties to the propagation. From her biology focus, to the fact that she literally created an emanator of propagation. Hell, I think she might become the new Aeon of propagation by the end of the story. If not, she might become an emanator of propagation. And I think a lot of the questions about emanators and gods are going to be answered by her at some point in the story. And of all the characters that I think is most likely to get a 5-star variant, she is up there for me. Also, I mentioned that names are very important. They want to have the variants seem to have different names when they can. And Ruan Mei, fun fact, is not her name. She's faking that name. That's her parents' names. Her father and mother were Ruan and Mei, I believe, if I remember correctly. So she's using a pseudonym. So we could also just get an erudition version of her at some point down the line, where maybe she's an emanator of erudition at some point down the line. Who knows? We could just get an erudition version of her. She's got the most... She's one of the characters with the most opportunities to become a 5-star variant, and... yeah. Enough said. Artoria. Saber. Okay, now I said that no matter how many versions of the Fate event, we'll probably not get another version of Archer. I'm actually going to put Saber here. Because for those of you who are fans of the Fate franchise, there's a lot of Sabers. They have variants of Saber in her own damn series. Now, will they be variants of Artoria? No. But will they be variants of Saber? Yes. There will be variants of Saber. Particularly this Saber. Alright, here he is. Another one of the characters that made me want to make this list in the first place. It's Sampo. All the way up here, Sampo, you go. 100% will. He went and got his mask back from Sparkle. He's going to use that mask to protect Belobog from some unknown disaster in the near future. In fact, not only do I think we're going to get to see Sampo, I think he might be one of those characters that will be revealed to be an emanator of the Elation. Now, whether that makes him an Elation path, who knows? I don't know if Elation will ever be a playable path. I hope it will be, and I've had a few ideas that I've pitched for the Elation path in the past. Like, it does aftertaste damage in the simulated universe, where it does a bunch of different types of elemental damage. So my idea for the Elation path would be maybe they could do colorless break damage, where that could be their gimmick, where they do multiple element stuff. Or maybe they could just be at multiple element units, like where their skill does one element damage, their ultimate does different element damage, and then their basic does a third different element damage. And then maybe they have like a follow-up or something that does a fourth different elemental damage. That's like my theory on what an Elation path could be, and it's something that I've brought up multiple times on my streams, as well as in multiple Discord chats. I've also brought this up. It's my pitch for what an Elation path could be. And Sampo being revealed as the Emanator of Elation, or just an Elation path character, probably the first one we met, to be honest. I think that he's very likely, and we will 100% get him as a 5-star unit. What that 5-star unit will be, don't know. But I hope it would be an Elation path, and I hope we get a new path of Elation with Sampo on it. Okay, we can see the end of the list now. We're getting close to the end. After Sampo, we got Zila. Zila, you can go up here with Bronya. Just cuz. If Bronya's got a ton of variants, I can totally see Zila getting a bunch of variants. People are already making jokes that Casterus is a Zila variant already. And with you being throbbed into the 50-50 loss pool, I actually think that that's even more of a sign that we'll probably be getting a 5-star variant of you in the future. Also, quick side note, the 50-50 loss pool units, who do you think is going to be added to the 50-50 loss pool soon? Maybe we'll do a separate tier list for just that, but I think Dawnhung Inhibitor Lune, maybe even March 7th Evernight could end up being on those characters that be added to the 50-50 loss pool. And also on that note, we still don't have a Remembrance unit in the standard pool. There's still no Remembrance 5-star that's in the standard banner 5-star list. So you should be looking at every Remembrance character that comes out from now on with the idea in the back of your head that that character might get put on the standard banner at some point. So that's something that you should all be thinking about. Who's next? Serval? So, out of all of the Landaus, I think you're the most likely to get a 5-star variant. But, yeah, I'll put you in likely. In fact, you've already discussed possibly leaving the planet and becoming a nameless at some point. Now, whether or not you actually ever do that, I don't know. But I could definitely see you as someone who takes back their position as an architect somewhere down the line, because you were removed from the architects by Kikolia at one point. So I would love to see a version of you where you've got the full lab coat on and the full architect outfit, or we get like a non-Rockstar version of Serval. I don't think it'll be very popular, and I'm not sure if everybody wants it, but I want it, and I can consider it happening. Also, I would probably, on a separate list, if we do another tier list in the future, I think Serval is also a high likelihood character of getting a skin. Out of all the characters that I think could pull off that they could easily give a skin to, Serval being one of them, because Serval is someone that's on everyone's account. But I don't want to get sidetracked. Silver Wolf. We'll put you up here with Blade. I definitely think we can get a Harmony Silver Wolf at some point. or an Erudition Silverwolf. She's got a lot of different options open to her, especially with her duels with Screwlum and Herta. Genius Society member number 89, Silverwolf. Also, we still don't know if Silverwolf is her actual name or not, so she might actually just be a Bronya variant. In which case, she's the 5-star limited variant of Bronya. In fact, actually, you know what? We're going to move you up. 100% will. We will get a Silverwolf variant at some point, because you're just Bronya. Sparkle! Get up here! Sparkle is another one of the characters that made me want to make this tier list, because I think we will get a 5-star limited character like Sparkle, a Sparkle variant at some point, because we technically don't even know if the Sparkle we got is the real Sparkle, for one. For two, if we might get an Elation Path at some point down the line, because we have it in SU and DU, and she might be an emanator of the Elation, more likely than Sampo in that respect. And frankly, we still don't really know what all of Sparkle's goals and motivations are. Like, we still don't really know why she wanted to team up with Black Swan on Penacony, was something that I was recently talking about with a friend. And the fact that in the Cosmodicy event, she's like the only character that was mentioned to know about Amphorius before we even were told we were going to Amphorius. And when we were going to Amphorius, it was really weird that nobody seems to know what Amphorius was or if it even exists. But Sparkle knows. Sparkle knows what Amphorius is. And she even has this entire shtick about a Divine Mecha. Go look up Sparkle Cosmodicy and look up what she says in the Cosmodicy event. It's very, very, very heavily foreshadowing the events of Amphorius. Sparkle knows about Iron Tomb and Amphorius. For sure. Sunday! Unlike Robin, I'm gonna put you here. Your entire goal of your journey on the Astral Express is to change. And also, maybe the Order will be a path at some point, and we'll get an Order Sunday. So actually, we're gonna move you to 50-50. You also got the boss stuff, so yeah, we'll put you in likely. Sunday, I would not be surprised if he gets another form. Also, I think he's popular. Also, I pulled him on my account because he kind of is just broken and works with every unit because he's just Power Crept Bronya. Oh, another character that I've been talking about for a long time, but I'll put her in 50-50, is Li Sushang. So, she's been improving and getting better at her swordsmanship. She actually fought Yongqing to a stalemate at one point during one of the events. So, she definitely has room for improvement as a character, and the fact that she was also recently featured in HI3, where she got a new version. I would like to see a new version of Li Sushang, but personally I would actually like to see her mom be a playable character at some point, because we keep getting told about how scary her mom is, and I would just love for them to make her mom a playable character, and it's literally just her but older. Ting Yun! You can go with Fugue. Topaz! I'ma shove you with the other Stonehearts in 50-50. I could see you getting another form where your kit's based more around your Stoneheart, because we still kind of really haven't seen you utilize the power. Or technically, we did get to see you utilize the power when you fought Luca. Unfortunately, Luca was hallucinating, so we didn't get to see it. But we know that it happened off screen. TB is a given. I'm sure every path that March and Don Hung don't get to be, we will get to be at some point. So, I'm not going to spend too much time on Trailblazer. Let's just move all the Trailblazers up there. This is a lot of characters and 100% will get a 5-star variant. Tribby! You know what? I'm gonna put 50-50. Because I think that just because we have a Tribby, we can get a Trian, we can get a Trinin. Do I think it's 100% likely? No. but would be very funny. In fact, personally, I still think that if we don't get a 5-star version of Trinan and Trian, we might get a 4-star version. Welt Yang! 100% yes. Reveal your true powers as the Hersher of Reason. We know that you're still in your prime, and that you're actually hiding how weak you are. You can't fool me, Welt Yang. Or should I say, Joaquin Novikin? I have no clue how to pronounce his actual name. It's really hard and it's spelled odd. Xuyei! You can go with Hanya down here. At any point, you can get a new robot body, and any new robot body they give you is a new 5-star potential or 4-star unit that you could possibly be. Whether that new variant is a 4-star or a 5-star is probably why I'm not comfortable putting you in 50-50. Yon King! Oh, we 100% will have Yon King as a 5-star limited unit at some point. He's already improving in the story to the point where he can do damage to Xuyei. But personally, I think he's more likely to get a kit rework than he is to actually. But yeah, I'll knock you down. But we'll put you in likely. I want you to get a new 5-star limited version. But I will acknowledge that maybe it's not guaranteed for you. Because I think your base kit needs work. And a lot of it. Yukong! Madam Yukong! I'm actually going to put you in 50-50. I think we could actually get a Starfighter pilot version of Yukong at some point. Where she's less an archer and more of a dogfighter. Or should I say, foxfighter? She's a silver fox. I don't know where I'm going with this pun. Either way, she's more likely than a lot of the other 4-stars, in my opinion. But I wouldn't say she's too likely, because she is a character that's more or less been forgotten about. And honestly, I kind of forgot that she was around until I realized that she was right up during the first phase of the 3.4 banners. And here we are. We've made it to the end. It's Yunli. I'm going to put you over here with Yanqing. What do I have to say about Yunli? So, Yunli, she's got the Flame Wheel. She's one of the members of the Flame Wheel Octet. I think that at some point down the line, she could maybe switch up and adapt more of a loose fighting style. How funny would it be to get a version of Yanqing where he adapts the Zhu Ming fighting style more and he starts using a big sword, and then we get a 5-star variant of Yunli where she adapts more of the Lo Fu fighting style and ends up using a bunch of smaller swords. There's room there. Anyway, we've gone through all the characters. This is where we have our final list. This has been me rating every unit in Honkai Star Rail on how likely I think they are to get a 5-star variant at some point in the future. And the answer is, for quite a few of them, it's pretty likely. And then for quite a few others, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, this has been fun. We've been going at this for an hour and 15 minutes. We have now cycled through my entire soundtrack for the Lost Branch of Legend. And this has been fun. I don't think I'm going to do too much editing on this. I'm probably just going to try to crop out some of the ads for the most part. And if you'd like to stay up to date on or see more content like this in the future, the best way to do that would be to tell me. Leave a comment and let me know if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. I would like to make more content like this in the future. I would like to rate all the hats in Star Rail. I would like to... We discussed the likelihood of a 4-star variant. I would like to talk about how likely someone is going to get added to the standard banner or the 50-50 lost pool. There's so much more we could talk about and so much more we could rate. And I like doing these. So, if you'd like to see me do more of these, let me know in a comment, or join the Discord, and let me know there. That's all for now. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.